everyone. You're watching PokerNews.com. I am joined by Ben Yu, bracelet winner, WPT final tableist. Now, I was stalking your blog like any good poker reporter would do. benyupoker.blogspot.com. Check it out if you haven't. It is very well written and has a lot of good poker insight.
Should I be afraid at this point?
Totally. I'm a fully creepy stalker. I'll be outside your window later tonight. It's me. But there was a lot of interesting things that you touched on in the blog, and one of them was that perhaps if someone was getting advice from a poker coach that was play more aggressively, play more hands, that this can be a little bit tricky. And I do think this is something that a lot of players run into. So just give us your feedback.
So this was day 5 or day 6 was the final table of WPT 5 Diamond Bellagio. And I had played with a couple of the final tablists there, Kevin Eister and Bill Jennings, the 2 days before, on day 4 and day 3. So I got in a lot of hands with them. And Bill was a tight recreational player who didn't play a lot of hands, didn't play them that aggressively. And the 4th hand of the day, I open ace-10 off in the low jack, and it folds to him, and he goes all in the big blind with about 15 or 16 blinds. And I was just pretty sure that he had a big hand here. I wrote that I felt kind of fortunate that I didn't have a better hand like ace-jack suited or ace-queen or even 10s, because I would have been very tempted to hero fold them, because based on my experience with him on day 3 and day 4, I just assumed that he had, ace-king plus, jacks plus, maybe ace-queen suited. And I was lucky enough that I just got to make a standard fold. I didn't have to look like an idiot. He ended up having queen jack suited, which isn't the most awful hand to have there, but it's just not something I expected from him. And it was at this point I hadn't even realized that he was getting coached by Matt Stout. This became more apparent when Matt was cheering for him every hand. I was like, so what's going on here? Like, are they buddies? And then I was like, oh, he must be coaching him. Like, Bill's playing a little different. And at this point, I'm still just trying to play good, but I'm also thinking like, wow, what are the things, I'm trying to get into, I'm trying to be, the fly on their wall of their conversation without having been there. What is Matt telling him, like what adjustments do I think he's going to make that, I should probably try to get a head start on. And, I tried to think of things like, he probably is going to decide to defend his big blind more. He's going to be aware that I might be 3-betting him some, or the other player is going to be 3-betting him some. But I also had to think of like things that were not as easy for him to learn. Like he probably, still wouldn't be able to call down 3 streets with bluff. Like it's very difficult to figure out when you're supposed to call down 3 streets with a bluff catcher or something. So I'm like, that's probably something I can still attack him with. And then I just thought of this as like a very big problem in general. Like if you're coaching someone and you have limited time, what are you supposed to teach them? And for Bill, one of the best pieces of advice I think someone could give him, and Matt was probably giving him, was that you could probably afford to play a few more hands, especially now we're getting shorthanded. You can't just fold through with the blinds and antes coming through every orbit. But this can be really tricky at a final table where there are very big pay jumps. And a lot of what Bill was doing well was actually, playing pretty snug to get those pay jumps. So it's definitely just a very tricky question, overall. And I was definitely just going, like, asking my friends, like, what do you think he's telling him? Like, should I be doing this because I think he's going to be opening more?
It's funny, actually, what you mentioned, because I talked to Matt Affleck yesterday he was getting deeper and deeper in a WSOP event, and I was talking to him about ICM and how important it also is to realize what other players at the table do and don't realize about pay jumps and about ICM and like where your expected value is versus real money. It is really, really interesting. And then I think for someone maybe who's receiving, you do coaching, right?
I would. I think what you're talking about is actually very interesting, and there's a lot to it, because a lot of the correct play at a final table or on the bubble of a satellite or on the bubble of a tournament is predicated on your opponents playing well and playing a specific way. Basically, them being willing to fold when you stick it in on them. And it can be very frustrating and very tilting when you play well supposedly, but your opponents don't cooperate. That can be like the most tilting thing in poker. This happens in the Stud 8 tournament that I just got out of on day 2, when your opponents, your teammates for the hand don't jam with you. And this definitely happens on a bubble. One of the things we can talk about is that this summer, Jason Mercier has all these side bets, so he's playing to win the tournament. So normally, at the final table of a tournament, like let's say of the single draw, I believe that he was in on Was he? No. I'm not sure if he was in that one.
He's been in a million things. Who cares?
The Raz, let's say. No, he was at the single draw for sure. So if we jam on him, he doesn't have to call tight anymore because he's not trying to get those pay gems. He's trying to win his bracelet and the bracelet bets that come with it. So it does, just change things up. You definitely have to get inside the head of your opponents and, figure out who is going to cooperate with you and who's going to just try to spike call you and just try to win it all.
Who's got a lot of value outside of the actual tournament itself, more even than in the prize pool. Well, it's so good to catch up with you. Actually, I would really love to do more videos with you. Mr. Benyu, I'm Sarah Herring. You guys are with us here on PokerNews.com.